So we did it again. We scaled another client from the typical 30 to 50K per month plateau all the way up to, you can see here, last 28 days, last 4 weeks, £173,000 cash collected. Now, bear in mind, although we're seeing a 3x increase in revenue, this is just cash collected, right? A lot of these, contracts that we signed or deals that we signed were payment plans, whether it be like a 2-pay, 3-pay, 4-pay, some deposits as well. A lot of them were paid in fulls, obviously, but yeah, I think around the total deal value for the last 4 weeks is probably exceeding like 250K. So I'm gonna be walking you guys through what it is that we did, what I'd identified prior to working with this client, because bear in mind, we did this within 30 days. We've only been working with this client for 30 days. And in this info space, high ticket coaching space, it's very common to be, plateaued between a 30 to 50K mark, because you kind of get to that and you're stuck in the daily operations of the business. So I'm going to be walking you guys through what it is that I identified during the call that I had with this client, because obviously, prior to working with anyone, I'll have kind of like an audit call, right? And I'll speak to them for around 30 to 60 minutes, ask them questions with regards to, their top of funnel traffic strategies, how they're nurturing or warming up that audience, what kind of content they're posting, the sales process from A to Z, and then what the back-end delivery systems look like, right? And just have an overarching view on the entire operating system of the business. And after doing that, after having a conversation, 30, 60 minutes, I can usually understand deeper than, some of the surface level problems. I can usually understand kind of what it is that's holding that business owner back. And typically, the people that I speak to, they understand the surface level issues like lead quality, lead volume, show up rate and all that sort of stuff, but they don't understand what's causing those issues. So, although this audit and although this case study is not for your business in particular, you're probably going to learn a lot from this. And I guarantee you that out of the many things we discovered, there's at least going to be 1 to 2 things that relate back to your plateau right now and why you can't break past that 30 to 50K a month mark. So yeah, let's dive in, guys. So the interesting thing about this business, right, was they had a great offer and they had great results. So, total available market was fantastic. There were a lot of people that we could sell this offer to, and the offer itself is such a no-brainer, right? So that is a huge, huge win. And to be honest with you, like when I understood the fundamentals of this offer, I knew 100% that we were going to be able to scale it up. I didn't anticipate that we would scale it this fast. And I do want to just have a little disclaimer for you guys. This wasn't scaled through ad spend increase, right? It's not a case where we went in and ramped up the spend. Like we completely, transformed that business in every way. And I'm going to walk you through what it is that we've done. Now, problem with this client was that they had a great offer, they had great results, they just had a broken operating system, right? Everything needed a rehaul. So if you are stuck between the 30 to 50K month plateau, your business probably has at least one of these problems, okay? So what we're going to cover today, we're going to cover the brutal audit that we did. So what we found and why everything was broken. I'm going to take you through the 4-phase system rebuild and the exact processes we used to fix it. Obviously going to be walking you through the results, the numbers and the systems that made it sustainable, repeatable and predictable. And I'm also going to talk you through the key lessons at the end of the video and how you can apply them to your very own business. Now, for this client in particular, they're in like a super competitive industry. So they didn't want any of their trade secrets or anything that we built getting out there as of yet. So we did sign an NDA. What this means is that I can't walk you through the specific industry or the specific client, but I can blur everything out. So I'm still going to be taking you through ad manager. I'm still going to be taking you through the ad manager. Still going to be walking you through the backend systems we built. I just can't disclose the exact name of this client, right? So the audit. What was it that I had discovered when having that initial conversation with the client? Well, first of all, there was a bunch of marketing issues, right? The VSL looked like it was recorded in 2015. It was outdated, unprofessional. The current process with marketing was that cold traffic would go straight to a sales call. Now, bear in mind, the product itself or the program itself is 10,000 Great British pounds up front, right? Paid in full. So you imagine you're trying to run VSL ads to a cold audience, get them through an opt-in funnel, schedule a call with you. The VSL was rubbish. So the VSL didn't do a good job of warming them up anyway, because that could be your only argument, right? They get on the call and then they're expected to pay £10,000 up front to someone they don't even know. You've built no familiarity, you've built no context, you've not put them through, a solid customer journey to get to the point of booking a call when they're pre-sold on what it is that you do. So no fucking shit, you know, it was obviously quite obvious why the closers were having trouble actually getting deals across the line, right? So there was 0 nurturing sequences, there were no retargeting campaigns, and there were no lead qualification processes. So leads were coming through unfiltered, they get price shock, amongst a bunch of other stuff. And the result of this was that you're wasting traffic, the prospects are cold, and you're getting low conversion rates, right? So ultimately you're wasting the closer's time as well. Like, you're filling that calendar with leads that aren't even ready to buy, right? We also had problems with the sales team, right? So the sales manager that was hired had 0 accountability, right? No one, he may have been managing the reps, but no one was managing him. So what we actually figured out was that the reps weren't getting managed at all. They may have had a call here and there, but he weren't holding them accountable. He wasn't giving them, certain KPIs to hit. And, amongst a bunch of other stuff, there was just no, clear system with the management of the sales team. And this led to people just going rogue. No one was communicating with each other, and it was just an absolute shit show, right? So obviously I mentioned we're trying to one call close 10K offers to strangers. It's just not going to work in this day and age. Appointment setters were operating with no systems or scripts. Now, I'm not saying that an appointment setter has to follow a script word by word, but you have to, when you're building a team, you have to have SOPs and you have to have systems in place, right? Because what that does is, if you can follow a repeatable system, you can generate a repeatable result, right? If you're like just fucking cowboying it and doing a bunch of random shit with all your team members and you're generating results, like, you're not going to know what input created that output. So I'm going to walk you through the SOPs we created and all that sort of stuff, because everything within this business now is systemized. Everything within this business is repeatable. Everything within this business is predictable. And us hitting £174,000 in cash collected over the past 28 days, we know exactly how we did it. We know exactly what inputs we put in to get X amount of outputs, right? So that result in and of itself is repeatable. We have clarity behind that. We know how we achieved it down to the very last, input on every single level of the customer journey. So it's easy to repeat. Okay. So there was no performance tracking or KPIs. The team were operating in silos. And the result of this was that, low close rates, high pressure, poor experience overall for everyone, not just the prospects, but the team as well. So the back end, there was a bunch of chaos in the back end as well. There was 0 data tracking, so we couldn't find where the bottlenecks was on paper. It just had to go based on my intuition, seeing, from an eagle eye standpoint of the business, looking at the traffic, looking at the sales processes, looking at the back end systems. But when you're like tracking every step, right, it's a lot easier to identify the bottlenecks, because a lot of people scale with guesswork, right? Whereas what you should be doing is scaling with absolute certainty based on the data that you have. So there was no SOPs, everyone was winging it. There was no lead source attribution. When good leads did come through, it was really hard to figure out what, brought them through. What ad set was it? What audience? What ad? What hook? Did someone nurture them beforehand? Did they see a certain amount of videos or watch a certain amount of, content before booking that call? There was no understanding of like where, they started that customer journey within the operating system and how they resulted to be a good lead, right? A good prospect to speak to. So without having that, clarity with regards to like, okay, this lead was fucking great. It was an easy close. He knew XYZ prior to hopping on the call. Where did this guy start his journey, or where did this girl start that journey? Without understanding that, you can't repeat it, right? So I think when it comes to scaling a business, it's not just about increasing inputs and increasing ad spend. It's really about systemizing everything and making sure that every single input within your business, every single, element or stage of the customer journey is tracked, it's mapped out, it's put into a sheet so that you can go back and you can attribute every good lead, every easy close to exactly what point of the system or what point of the customer journey they entered in. And you can replicate that, you can repeat that, right? So there were no conversion rate analysis, there was no daily, weekly reporting. As a result, people were flying blind, no clarity, no way to predict or repeat success, like I mentioned. So the brutal truth, guys, was this wasn't, like I said, a tweak the ad situation or increase ad spend or this, that, and the other. This was a complete business reconstruction project, okay? Everything needed to be rebuilt from the ground up. But here's the good news, right? When you fix the foundation of a solid offer, results can compound fast. And this is why you'll see, some business owners get so frustrated because they know what they do is amazing, right? They know they have conviction in what it is that they do, for starters. They have certainty that if they were to, work with the right type of client, they could get them, said result. Like me, for example, right? I know if I work with a certain client, I can predict or anticipate exactly what kind of results we're going to generate, similar to what I did with this client here. And some of you coaches, some of you info product owners are the same, right? You know what you do is amazing, and it might frustrate you a little bit because you don't understand kind of what's holding you back from reaching the potential that you know you can achieve based on the other people that may even be doing it in your industry. Now, the good thing, the kind of good side to this, or the good perspective of this, is that you may only be a couple of tweaks or a couple of fixes away from getting that result. It's not always about completely reconstructing the business and all that sort of stuff. Like, you may just be a couple of tweaks away, maybe a tweak in positioning, a tweak in the ads, a tweak in the content that you're producing, a tweak in the funnel maybe, or even a tweak in the offer, right? You could just be one tweak away from like substantially increasing your revenue. So results compounded fast, as you can see. We went from 40,000 last month to 173,000. That's not like going from 5K to 15K. Like, it's obviously a 3x increase still. We went from 42K to 173K cash collected, guys. Absolutely insane. So here's what we did, right? I'm going to walk you through some of the bullet points, and then I'm obviously going to take you through some screen shares of the ad managers and all that sort of stuff. So phase one was the team restructure, okay? Out with the old, in with the new. So we fired the underperforming sales manager because he wasn't managing fuck all. And we fired a week closer and appointment setter, anyone who couldn't follow systems. Because I'll repeat myself again, if you can't follow systems, and repeatable processes, you are not going to be able to predictably repeat the result that you generated from that system, right? So in with the new, we hired and placed a new performance-based closer. Obviously, I provide kind of like an end-to-end done for you and done with you kind of offer for info product, high ticket coaches. So what's included in that is we have a plethora of different recruitment agencies and stuff like that train these closers and train these appointment setters on the exact way that we recommend and suggest. So if we are onboarding a client and their sales team are absolutely terrible, we can just go and place new closers in, which worked really well for this client because one of the closers we placed were just fucking amazing. He got 2 paid in fulls yesterday. I'll show you, you can see here. 2 paid in fulls and 1 split pay and 1 deposit that is later going to turn into a pay in full. We did yesterday £28,000 in cash collected. Clients absolutely over the moon with this closer. So we also placed 2 specialized appointment setters, 1 for Instagram DMs and 1 for phone calls, right? And what that means is that I'll walk you through the customer journey in a little bit more detail later on in this video, but for when someone opts in for the VSL, we have like a phone number field, right? So the phone setter will call them through Close.io, it's a software that we use, and he'll be doing anywhere from 100 to 200 dials per day, and he's booking anywhere from like 3 to 6 calls per day, right? And this is solely off of calls that have opted in, but they haven't scheduled a call. So if you are running a opt-in VSL funnel, whatever you want to call it, and you're not utilizing your opt-ins, like it's a weird thing in the industry, right? People think that if you're running like some free training or webinar or whatever, you have to have an opt-in page. I don't necessarily think you have to, right? It all depends on how you're going to make use of that opt-in page, because typically opt-in pages have around 20 to 30% opt-in rate, right? Conversion rate. So if you're doing fuck all with those opt-ins, if you're not nurturing them through email, if you're not calling those leads up, like, you're losing out 70 to 80% of traffic to your VSL page or to your training page. All for what? Just because the industry normalized having an opt-in page, like, it doesn't make sense. So if you do have an opt-in page, if you choose to have an opt-in page, obviously it can filter and it can pre-qualify and all that sort of stuff, but I'm not talking about that. If you do choose to have an opt-in page, you must make sure you are utilizing it, right? You must make sure you are using that data to nurture prospects. Because like I said, our phone appointment setter is booking anywhere from 3 to 6 calls per day. And this is of leads that didn't schedule in through the VSL funnel. So if we left them, that's 3 to 6 calls that we wouldn't have had extra per day, right? So you can imagine how obviously transformational that can be for a business that has a high ticket offer of £10,000. Now, the Instagram DM specialist also came into play with our Instagram follower ads and Instagram DM ads. ManyChat sequences, call to actions and stuff like that. You know, if anyone followed our Instagram page, responded to a call to action, the Instagram DM specialist is in there nurturing, having conversations, pushing them through to the right content, and ultimately setting calls through Instagram DMs as well, right? So every single touch point we have in a business, every single, I guess, arm of the business that we have, you know, the funnels, the social medias and all that sort of stuff, it's all being capitalized on, right? And I honestly think that your sales team is the lifeblood of your business. If you have a good appointment setting process, you have a good closing process, and you have a good client acquisition system that feeds that team, that feeds that, you know, system, you know, it's a recipe for success. Obviously, having the good offer on the back end of that. So quality over quantity. I'm also going to tell you that you don't need to place closers. You don't need to place setters. Like, there are people out there that can run these 6-figure a month shows as a standalone business owner, but the reality of the situation is, you know, not every single business owner is very good at everything. They're usually good at just a couple of things. Obviously, when it comes to the info space, your skill sets are a bit more broadened, but when we're working with individuals who might be specialized in helping clean beauty founders scale, or might be, you know, wellness experts or whatever it might be, right? They're usually specialized in their field. They're good at serving their clients. They're good at talking about what it is that they do, but they might not be good at closing deals. They might not be good at appointment setting. They might not be good at sales copy and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, whilst obviously this case study relies on the, you know, the sales team and the client acquisition system that we built, I don't absolutely think it's necessary to hire teams. You can have a very, very lean business. This business is still lean. Everyone here is on performance, right? So if they don't generate results, if they don't get the result that we need, they only get paid in accordance to the results that they deliver, which I recommend for any of you guys that are considering hiring closers or anything like that. Now, the phase 2 was the marketing overhaul. So we went in, we redesigned that VSL funnel, we got them to record it again, and we shortened it by 40%. One thing I'll say here, guys, a little gem for you, is that if you're looking to sell to wealthy people, you know, affluent individuals, they don't have fucking 40 to 60 minutes to sit down and watch your shitty VSL, which goes through all the pain points, your story and all that sort of stuff. Like, you're wasting their time and they're not going to end up watching it. So what we ended up doing with this client is shortening the VSL by around 40%. It now sits around like 16 minutes. I would say the sweet spot is anywhere from like 15 to 25 pushing it if you want to sell to wealthy individuals, like rich people. Get to the point, show them what you can do, show them how you do it, show them the proof, show them the evidence, and then walk them through, you know, what it is that you're offering essentially. You don't need to overcomplicate it, right? There's a lot of different ways, I'll do another video on this, there's a lot of different ways that you can make VSL funnels more appealing for wealthy individuals, and I'll do a separate video on that. But yeah, so that's what we did for the VSL funnel. Now for the nurture engine, you know, someone comes in through Instagram follower ads or Instagram DM ads, they then get put through a journey or a sequence of 6 to 10 different nurturing videos, which cover FAQs, they handle objections before they arise. They, you know, create social proof, showing case studies, results, and all that sort of stuff. Talk a bit more about your unique method, your unique pathway that you take people through to get the said result that you promise. And yeah, that's normally a stack between anywhere from like 10 to 30 videos that we put into a nurturing campaign on Facebook. So I'll show you live on screen. So you can see here, like, if you're familiar with meta ads, right, you'll know that the cost per 1,000 impressions can be quite expensive when you're targeting a warm audience, because the warmer the audience, or shall I say, the smaller the audience, the more it typically costs to reach those individuals. So this, we basically found a campaign objective where we can distribute 10 to 30 videos to individuals on a daily basis for super cheap, right? You can see here, where is it, CPMs, cost per 1,000 impressions is around £1.30 to £2 on the higher end of these videos, right? So we're getting like hundreds of thousands of views on our videos within a warm audience for next to nothing, right? And how this would basically look is this. Let's say you see a follower ad, you click on that profile, you start scrolling through their content, you might even go to that funnel. What we're now going to do is systematically place a certain videos on your feed every time that you open Instagram or Facebook. And once you've watched 25 to 50 to 75% of that video, we're now going to exclude that video from your feed, and then in comes the next video. So basically what we do is, we speak to the closers, or we look back at old sales call recordings. We understand every single objection, every single, question that the prospect has on the calls, and we turn those into compelling videos, so that by the time someone comes in and they're going through all these nurturing videos, right? Every time they open their feed, it's a new video explaining something that we've calculatedly designed. They end up getting to the call with our retargeting ads pre-sold, right? They know exactly what it is that you do. All of their objections have been handled. And the best way to handle an objection is to prevent it ultimately, right? Because we're trying to make the job as easy as possible for our closers. Because if you can give warm leads to a solid closer, you'll hit 28K days, right? You'll sign endless amounts of clients if you have a solid closer like we've placed, and the nurturing system prior to that is warming them up, making them into getting them into a pre-sold state, right? So that's kind of what our nurturing sequence consisted of. I am going to do a much more in-depth video on what it is that we do within that and how it's all set up. Now, the psychology behind this was that we built trust before selling, right? There was no more trying to marry a prospect on a first date, trying to get them on a paid in full, one call close, any of that type of stuff. It just was never going to work, right? So phase 3, is a sales process. So the old way was cold traffic to a sales call to a one call close attempt, low conversions, high pressure, poor experience. The new way was warm traffic to a nurturing campaign, creating a pre-sold prospect, leading to a natural close, right? So higher conversions, lower pressure, better quality, and overall higher fulfillment for the team, right? The closers aren't messaging the business owner on a daily basis like, the lead quality is shit, I'm wasting time, I'm getting loads of no-shows. They're enjoying scaling the business, they're enjoying, hitting milestones, smashing KPIs, obviously earning more money for themselves because they're commission-based and performance-based. And overall, the whole team is thriving, well and truly. So the key changes that we made were we have pre-call qualification and filtering through content and stuff like that. We also have a post-call nurture sequence. So if someone did come on, we're not expecting 100% close rate, right? If someone did come on and they weren't ready, or the timing wasn't right, or for whatever reason they just didn't convert, we're not now going to dispose of that lead. We're going to put them back into this system. So out of those 10 to 30 videos, they may have only watched 8, or they may have only watched 10 by the time that the retargeting ad hit them for the VSL. So now they're going to go through and they're going to see new videos, right? So we're kind of repurposing those leads and turning it into a flywheel. So it's not like a process where you have an opt-in page, you have a call, they don't close, you drag them over to the non-closed or not interested section on your pipeline and leave them to fucking rot there. This individual has developed an interest in your product, has developed an interest in you, so why not nurture them back into that process until they are ready to make that decision, right? So everything was intentional, and we had specialized roles for each stage. Now, the back-end systems, we standardized all of that operations, right? So we had detailed SOPs for every role, endless amounts of SOPs that our team went through and created. And again, the reason we do this is because if your team can follow a repeatable process, they can generate a repeatable result, right? We have step-by-step processes, quality control checkpoints, and Slack automation builds. So we went in and built a Slack channel for this individual client. So we have here, commission payouts. The team will put their payouts in there. We have growth ideas. We have the booked calls coming through with the form submissions. Feedback channel if any other team want to provide feedback. We have the leads coming through. We have the no-shows coming through. So the setters are communicating with the closers. All these automations are built. So when the closer marks a no-show on their calendar, it's going to be triggered through to Slack. We don't have to be individually speaking all of these things. And we have payment actions, payment links. So when a payment comes through, we onboard the client. When a payment comes through, the closer will type in or fill out a form that registers that there's a new close. Then I guess you call it the VA on the back end, or the accountant on the back end will go through, finalize the onboarding, set up the subscription on the back end of Stripe and stuff like that. And yeah, we have the setter team, the sales team, the team channel, team meeting recordings, team reports, end of day reports for the closers and the setters. People are going through. If I show you down here, we have daily KPI reporting. So for the DM ads, we'll have an appointment set and manage this, and we'll know exactly what keyword is performing well, how much ad spend that keyword's had, how many messages have been sent out. We'll have the name of each prospect that's speaking to. Did they show to the call? Did they close? How much cash was collected? So now we know how effective are the DM ads? How effective is the DM appointment setter? What keywords are performing the best out of ManyChat? How much spend did we spend on the best performing keyword? And what was the cost of acquisition for that keyword? So again, we're just understanding like every single metric of the business. Same for the, Same for the ads tracking, right? So we may only have on this VSL here a cost per appointment of £47, but realistically our cost per appointment is probably around like £20, right? Because we have this doesn't count the opt-in appointment setter calling the leads. It doesn't count the Instagram DM setter setting the leads, right? Because that's obviously not part of the advertising campaign. So we're booking red hot leads for £47, which in the high ticket space, like if you know guys, you're probably sitting here thinking, how the fuck are they doing that? And that's not taking into consideration the calls that are coming through on the other avenues, right? So our cost per call is actually way lower than that. Now, where was I? Yeah, so we have the ads tracking sheet as well. We're tracking all the metrics daily, impressions, amount spent and stuff like that. So we're seeing across the board what the cost per calls are. And also the closer has a sales tracking sheet. So he'll go in, say the name of the prospect, the source, the outcome, the revenue, the cash collected, their emotions, the objection, and then now paste the Fathom call summary or call recording so we can go through and find out. So we're going to be understanding call to offer rate, offer to close rate, conversion rate, all that sort of stuff. Cash collected, split pays. Every single step is being tracked. And I'll reiterate myself, but basically what it means is that we can repeat what we've done and we know exactly what to repeat. We know exactly what inputs to scale, right? So yeah. We results 30 days later was obviously we went from 40,000 a month to 173 cash collected, total deal value of 250k, including all the payment plans. Now beyond the numbers, lead quality has dramatically improved. Conversion rates are significantly higher. Cost per lead is substantially lower. Cost per call is substantially lower. Team efficiency, everyone's following systems and predictability, right? Clear metrics and forecasting for what we can do in the future based on the numbers that we just done. Now, what made this all possible, right? I'll give you a few lessons here before we wrap up, guys. So systems beat talent. Create processes so good that the average person can produce extraordinary results. You don't need to have the best of the best necessarily, right, to hit this result. Your team will rely, the quality or the output of your team will rely solely on the quality of your processes, right? The quality of your systems. You also want to diagnose before prescribing. So audit first, solution second. Don't just assume you know what's wrong with your business. Like make sure you have either the right set of eyes, like someone like myself going over it and saying, looking at every stage of the process before you make any decisions, right? Because what ends up happening is if you want to scale the business, but your business is misaligned, you're just going to scale the misalignment, right? So you really need to understand like what it is that's holding you back, what bottlenecks do you have before you start to attempt to scale inputs, because you could scale even further into the misalignment, which is just going to create more stress, more frustration, all that sort of stuff. Now, integration over isolation, everything must work together. Fix foundations before scaling. Like I said, don't multiply what's broken, and data beats gut feelings every single time. Track everything, guess nothing. So I want you to ask yourself, guys, do you have systems or do you have chaos? Are you scaling what works or multiplying what's broken? Do you know your numbers or are you guessing? And is your team following systems or just winging it? And lastly, are you building a business or just collecting revenue? Okay, so I want you to sit with those questions for a moment. And yeah, guys, if any of that has resonated with you, if you are stuck between that 30 to 50K per month plateau and you recognize maybe all of the problems or maybe just a handful of them, I do have a link in the description where you can schedule a free high ticket business audit, which will be with myself. It'll be a one-to-one call. And it's not a call where I pitch you or anything like that. I just go through a sequence of questions to understand the underlying issues within your business or the underlying reasons why you're at that plateau, deliver the bottlenecks, show you exactly what you need to do to transcend past those numbers, and give you a custom game plan to essentially give you awareness over what's holding you back. So if you do want to speak to me, if you do want to go through that, you can click the button in description or click the link in the description and schedule a call with me. So yeah, if you have any questions, guys, you can shoot me a message on Instagram. I'll reply with voice notes, or just put a message down in the comments of the video, and I'll catch you on the next one.